Hey, everybody. Carol Marzouk and Jim Gitney here. We've spent a lot of time talking and hearing about diversity and how it impacts a company and what it does to the organization. And we hear bits and pieces. Carol and I are here today to provide you some facts and some subjective thoughts around diversity and what it does for your clients and what it does for you as a trusted advisor and what it does for leaders inside of a business. And so I'm Jim Gitney. I'm the CEO of Group50 Consulting. We're subject matter experts in manufacturing and distribution in the supply chain. And we do a lot of strategic work with middle market companies. And we'll talk about how diversity is part of every strategic conversation. Carol, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Carol Marzouk, Executive Lion Tamer. I work with the big egos in the companies. So CEOs, attorneys, surgeons, the folks that get in their own way and sometimes create very toxic environments for everybody else. And I love it. And part of the reason why they create such toxic environments is because they disallow their companies and themselves to really understand what cultural diversity is all about. They don't get it. So let's talk about what that means. And I think you all know what that means, but for the purpose of just aligning everybody to the same definition, let's just talk about it for a second. So what it is when companies are open to hiring employees from all sorts of different backgrounds. We're talking about different races, religions, cultures, sexual orientations. When companies are recruiting and retaining a diverse pool of people, it brings about different benefits to the company and different benefits to the employees themselves. Think of the human race as a whole. We are a very diverse species across the globe with many different cultures and many different languages and many different beliefs. So why then, in this age of globalization, should we not focus on ensuring that our workplaces are just as diverse? Jim?
Cool. Okay, let's get down to the facts. Companies that have diverse cultures perform better than their peers, period. And the data supports that. The data supports, you're going to hear over the next half hour, multiple pieces of data that supports diversity as the important part of being more successful than your peers. So if you think about it, companies with gender diversity perform 21% better from a profitability perspective. And per share earnings and EBITDA and other areas, which we'll talk about a little bit later. One of the things that's incredibly interesting is that they're 27% greater value creation, so that a diverse employee base has the ability to create more value than an employee base that's not diverse. Now, while those are important, that gets the attention of owners. And so as leaders in an organization or professional service providers, your value add is the ability to be able to contribute to higher profitability and greater value of the enterprise. Now, you think about this. Okay, very cool. What else? And so let's talk about innovation. When I was at Black & Decker, we had a KPI, a key performance indicator, that looked at the amount of revenue generated by products that were less than 2 years old. And we always wanted 20 to 30% of our revenue in that category, because that gave us an idea of how we were doing in terms of new products and innovation. Now, that was a long time ago. Product life cycles today are seldom 2 years long anymore. Think of the iPhone. It is reinvented every year. And there are many other examples in terms of clothing, in terms of vehicles, in terms of anything we buy today. The product life cycle has gotten incredibly shorter. And so innovation is much, much more important for companies to be successful over a long period of time. And on the right-hand side of this chart, you can see a study from the Boston Consulting Group that said that companies generate 45% more innovation revenue when they have a diversified population versus companies who are not diversified. Think about this 73% improvement in innovation revenues if you have a diversified organization. Now, as a leader inside of a business, we now have proof that diversification provides a much better performance. And so while you may not be able to get the rest of your organization to think about diversity, perhaps it's not a strategic pillar. At the end of the day, you as a leader inside the business have the ability to impact the performance of your company. And that's what makes you have a stronger career path. But as a professional service provider, that's what allows you, if you're able to take these ideas and apply them to the work that you do for your clients, it allows you to have significantly more value add to your trusted partnership. Carol.
Yes, so let's talk about the benefits of cultural diversity. And I bet if I were to ask all of you to tell me what the benefits are, you could all tell me all of these. But let's talk about them from the lens of how you can discuss them with other executives on your team, in other companies, and the primary CEO or who you're primarily working with, right? That's what we're here for. So let's talk about these things. Number one, the most important thing, or one of the most important things, profit, right? Jim talked about gender diversity. McKinsey has shown time and time again that companies in the top 25th percentile for gender diversity on their executive teams, which is where we all live, right? That's who we work with. We're 15% more likely to experience above average profits. And as Jim stated, the latest data shows that that likelihood has grown to 21%, right? That's huge, that's big. And here's the thing, we're also seeing that the more diverse the senior management team, again, where we all work and live and talk to every day, and where we have a lot of influence, the more diverse that senior management team, the more we find that their market share increases year after year. Imagine that, right? Imagine if you were to get them to increase their market share year after year, even if you're not that consultant that usually does that, just by opening up the diversity conversation. All right, the second one that Jim put up there. So productivity. We can improve productivity levels. How do we do that? Well, think about that, right? Different backgrounds. We get all the different backgrounds together, all the different ethnicities and experiences. What are we going to breed? We're going to breed a more productive environment. If the CEOs that we're working with have all these different backgrounds, get together and learn from each other, from their different experiences, and gain all these different perspectives, then they're going to be able to bring the fresh ideas that they otherwise would not have had to the projects that they're working on by thinking outside of their comfort zone. Number three, employee engagement, something that I talk about all the time, of course, with my clients, right? So a lot of times, how do we learn about people that are different from us? We Google it, right? We Google how, people in other countries live and work, what they think about, what their belief systems are, why they are the way they are. Well, why not just work with them, have lunch with them, go and have a drink with them. Of course, we're talking about 2021, right? Once we're able to do that again. But what better way to learn about culture and ethnicity than from the colleagues that we work with, right? Forget about researching them online. So here's the cool thing about that, that when you're doing that, when you're having those kinds of conversations, it increases trust. And when you're increasing trust, it increases cohesiveness with the employees or among the employees. And when you're increasing that cohesion, then it increases motivation to get to work. It increases employee engagement. And of course, it's great for the company, right? So, all right, excellent. Next one, Jim. If we're increasing engagement, we're also reducing turnover, right? Think about this. If our client is hiring from a wider pool of candidates, right, for its job vacancies, and there are higher educated candidates, they're probably going to be looking for a company that is more diverse. That's where they're going to want to work. And so that more diverse company is now going to have a more qualified workplace. And when you have a more qualified workplace, you're going to likely hire the best of the best in the industry. And when you hire the best of the best in the industry, right, you're going to succeed in the market. And when you're doing that, you're going to have less discrimination. Believe me on this, because we don't have a lot of time, but feel free to call me if you want to banter about a little bit. But we've been doing this for almost 3 decades. And so we're going to experience less discrimination. And then we're going to tend to have better managers. And what happens when we have better managers? We have less turnover. Because people leave their manager, they don't leave their company, right? They don't leave their job. And then, next one, Jim, creativity. We increase creativity because, like we were talking about before, if we have a more diverse set of solutions to specific problems, because we have more world views to pull from, right? We have new ideas popping up, we can get a lot more creative. And then my favorite, this one is really important, especially now. When we're able to have a more diverse workplace, when our clients are able to have a more diverse workplace, we can reduce stereotyping, right? If we're exposed to people of different races and backgrounds and sexual orientations, we're able to reduce those negative emotions, those negative beliefs that we might have that we might not even know we have. Racism and homophobia and sexism, and we can go on, right? So diversity, that cultural diversity, improves our insights about people that are different than us. And then all of these things then culminate in having a positive reputation, which means that your client now is going to be an employer of choice, which means they're going to have people lining up to want to work for them. So back to you, Jim.
Thanks, Carol. You know, it's interesting. As I listened to Carol talk about that last slide, right? As leaders and as professional service providers, we can significantly impact the lives of our clients. We not only make them more profitable, we make them more innovative, we make them more appreciative of the demographics of the world around us, and likely have an impact on their personal lives as well. And so as a trusted advisor or as a leader inside of an organization, you have to sit back and think, wow, if I can make this happen, if I can help them become more diversified, or if I can make my own direct reporting, my team more diversified, and I can accomplish all of these things, me as an individual has a much higher level of value add to my organization and to my clients. And so that's the real essence of what Carol was just talking about. Now, let's talk about levels inside the organization and what their responsibilities are for diversity. Every functional activity at every level can benefit from diversity and inclusion. Now, when we talk about boards of directors, and I do a lot of strategic work with middle market companies, when we put together a strategy, diversity is always a strategic pillar. It is always a conversation we have at the board level, because we recognize that our responsibility at the board level is what? Earnings per share, profitability, performance in the marketplace, market share, all of those things, and governance and appropriate governance. So I have, as a service provider, the perfect opportunity to bring diversity up and to have a detailed conversation with it. That's what I'm there for. But as you move further down a functional organization, your right or your ability to push diversity becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. So we have to think about what are the things that we can do inside of at our functional level, or the functional level of the client that we're working with, in order to help them realize how better they can perform if they're able to work diversity and inclusion into their organization. Now, what if you're a sales consultant? Or what if you're the head of marketing and sales? What are the types of things you want to talk about? Well, you want to talk about making sure that your organization, actually represents the demographic of the client that you're selling to. It represents the buyers, that your demographic represents the buyers that you're dealing with, and that your demographic can talk effectively, that organization can talk effectively about why the product we're selling or the service that we're offering is going to be really unique and really appropriate for the demographic that you're selling to. So at the senior leadership level, we want to make sure that every functional leader really understands what their role in diversity is, and we can help them do that. We talked about marketing and sales. What about product development? I mean, does it really make sense to have, would it make sense to have cavemen in your product development organization attempting to try and design product for the iPhone? Absolutely not. And so it's really important that the people inside your product development organization understand the demographic that's going to be using the product you're selling in the marketplace. Well, let's talk about manufacturing and distribution for a second. If we truly can get more productivity and more innovation from a diverse population inside the workforce in manufacturing and distribution, why wouldn't we want that? Why wouldn't we talk about how making diversity inside of manufacturing and distribution can significantly improve the innovation that occurs there? What are we talking about? Lean techniques. We're talking about productivity. We're talking about performance in general. We're talking about lower turnover rates. Those are all things that we as leaders in manufacturing and distribution and as service providers can stress with our clients, can stress with our supervisors to make sure that a diverse organization is going to deliver significantly better results. So as either a leader or a professional service provider, we have the ability to make diversity and inclusion part of our daily activity and part of our strategies so that we can see better performance in the future. I'll turn it back over to Carol now.
Excellent, Jim. And you know, one of the things we didn't say is also, as we're talking about this, and I'm hearing you say it, also lower churn rates, right? If we're having lower turnover and higher engagement and all of those things that we've been talking about, also lower churn rates, which is huge because we want our clients to be our partners. Okay, so we want to give you practical things to do. We want to basically give you exactly what to say, how to open the conversation so that it's basically turnkey for you. Boy, I've said the word basically a lot just now. All right, so here's what not to say. We don't want you to say, is diversity a good thing for your company? Right? That closed-ended question, not good. Because what are they going to reply? Well, we've been doing okay, right? What we want you to do is open the conversation with an open-ended question, right? So how is the overall performance of your company linked to diversity? And opening the conversation with that question now allows you to start giving them the information that we've been giving you. And also, here's what it does. It disallows you from opening the conversation the way that most people open the conversation, which is through a whole bunch of subjective sentences like, hey, diversity is really good for companies. Diversity is fair. In this society, we should have diversity. Diversity leads to more innovation. And, diversity companies' personnel should match the makeup of its client base. Now, we know that that's true. Jim just talked about it. But it has a subjective element to it. And I know for a fact that my clients, some of them, do not believe that. So it does have a subjective element. And we don't want that subjective element to mar your conversation and to throw it sideways. So what you want to do is just start off with that very easy question and then just start talking about the facts, right? And the percentages. So after you ask that question, then you want to talk about the engagement, and then you want to start putting in the money stuff, right? So higher cash flow, 2.3 times higher cash flow per employee. Mr. CEO, would that be of interest to you? You would have a 35% greater chance of higher financial returns than your national industry median. Is that interesting? Right? You'd have more sales revenue, more customers, greater profits. I mean, here's data. And then we talked about engagement, lower churn, lower turnover. Well, how about outperforming our competition? How about greater earnings per share? How about 147% greater earnings per share? Is that interesting, right? So we're giving you a whole bunch of tools, a whole bunch of things that you can say to kind of get them on the train. And frankly, it works. It really works, especially if they already trust you, like our clients trust us, right? You're helping them. And you're adding more value to already the grandiose value that you're bringing them today. Jim?
Great job, Carol. You as a trusted advisor or as a leader in your organization have a role to play as in leading and guiding inclusion and diversity. Now, you may not be able to impact the board of directors. You may not be able to impact the CEO. It depends on where you are working in the organization and who you are supporting in the organization. But at the end of the day, the numbers that we've shared with you is like extra powder in your powder keg. It provides you with the ability to help justify asking the question about diversity. If you're, go back to sales and marketing. If you're in a sales and marketing role and you're attempting to try and improve sales and marketing, product development, manufacturing, think about the things that should be done in order to improve those operations or to improve those processes inside that business. I know, having run many factories during my career and having many factories report to me, that I will always take the organization that is innovative and that is able to create best practices and institute new ideas. Because if you sit and think about it, how does a new idea become a tidal wave? A new idea becomes a tidal wave because it moves the strategic needle. And when I talk to companies about doing continuous improvement, for example, I don't agree with 5S'ing office space because it doesn't do anything for the strategy. It doesn't move the strategic needle. So if you have the ability to be able to provide, to create an organization that is diversive and has diversity and inclusion that can outperform others in your organization, or that can make your clients perform better, then you will truly be viewed as an important part of that tidal wave that is going to move the strategic needle. Carol.
Yes, and here's the thing. Mark Hankin always says, and this is something that always sticks with me, he always told me, high tide raises all boats. And he's so right. And I remember when many years ago, I was thinking, yeah, there are a lot of people that we can say are in our own space, right? Or in the space that we work in. But we're all very different. We do things very differently. And in your particular space, there are a lot of people that do things differently than you do, but they're in your space. We are giving you a leg up. We are giving you extra tools, if you're watching this, to now be that, again, added value, trusted advisor, right? Be that person like we are for our clients. I have clients that sometimes they don't make a move without calling me, right? You want to be that person and be able to bring in the right people for that client. So add more value, take responsibility for your client's entire success, not just what you're really good at, but the things that you could sprinkle in like this that will open up a whole new world of possibilities. Jim?
So, we think we get it. We've shared what we do with our clients and how we are making diversity and inclusion an important part of what we do. So I'm Jim Gitney. Carol, thank you so much for being part of this. I think you've done an excellent job in helping to at least get that food for thought going. And it's going to be up to everyone who's listening to this to be able to figure out what they can do differently to significantly increase their value add and make their customers more successful.
Absolutely, Jim. And if you want to do it with me, we invite you to give us a call. We'll spend 15 minutes with you to talk about your particular situation, your particular clients, and how you can have those conversations. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And thank you, Jim, for inviting me to be part of this.
Carol, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.